What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Nemo Propaganda here, and I gotta admit, I'm a little surprised people don't talk about this speaker more, but we'll get into that. Let me throw these main specs on screen so you guys can check that out. I'll tell you about the specs and standout features that I feel make the speaker unique or special. I'll tell you what the speaker sounds like. We'll talk about amplifier pairing, room setup, how it compares to some other speakers in and around this price category, and then we'll wrap up the review. So the reason I said I can't believe more people aren't talking about the speaker is it's been in the market for a while. No one in the comments section has ever asked me to review it. I reviewed the little brother EMIT 10. I loved it so much. I said it had the best tweeter I had heard in that price category. The little one, the EMIT 10, is $799. Price might have changed. Prices for a lot of things have changed. This larger model is just a little bit more at $1,050 or $1,049 technically. And it is such a performer. I just can't believe people aren't making a buzz about this. So look, let me take you through it. So look, around front, you got a painted front baffle, vinyl wrapped for the rest. No surprise, it's a speaker that's $1,050. We usually don't see a full painted cabinet around this price. Around back, you got your binding post, you got your soft dome tweeter, you got your mid bass or bass woofer, right? It's nothing crazy on appearances. What is crazy about the speaker is its bass power. And I've said this before, I made a tier list recently, not a tier list, but just a list of all the speakers that just have crazy bass power. And I talked about the EMIT 10 and I went ahead and I said, probably any Dynaudio speaker can be on this list because all Dynaudio speakers bring the bass and the EMIT 20 is absolutely no different. So look, before I get ahead of myself, let me just tell you what it sounds like and why I enjoyed my time with it so much and why it's probably going to become one of my most popular recommendations for people that are looking for a speaker around $1,000. You guys remember when I reviewed that that Heco Salon Revolution 3? It was like 1,150, like 2-3 years ago maybe. And I loved it. I gave it an award. It was amazing. I bought a pair for myself, and then it got discontinued like 3-4 months after my review. This is on that level. This is on that same level. So let's talk about it. Starting with the high frequency region, we have a lot of resolution. I'll go ahead and say class leading resolution for the price category. This tweeter is absolutely phenomenal. It gives you good sparkle, a little bit of extra sparkle, good amount of air. It's a little bit on the forward side of neutral, but its attack is a little bit soft. So it's really easy on the ears. That's an interesting thing Dynaudio does. I haven't heard many other speakers voice this way, but Dynaudio's treble, usually they give you a little bit of extra quantity. They soften the attack. It's really easy on the ears. It's usually really refined for its price category, and it just delivers a good amount of resolution, great detail, great separation, great imaging, and you can listen to it for hours and hours and hours. And usually for this level of detail, it's not this easy on the ears, especially at this price category. So bravo, good job Dynaudio. This is one of the best tweeters I've heard in this price category, if not the best tweeter in this price category. Moving down to the mid-range region, ever so slightly recessed, ever so slightly. This is not a V-curve speaker, okay? It's not like a big, V-curve, but compared to the treble and the bass, ever so slightly pulled back. Now look, your singers, if the recording calls for them being pushed forward into the room, it's still going to do that. It's still going to give you good air and space around that singer and such. And this speaker brings a lot of bass to the table, so that mid-range is all about body and fullness and thickness. If there's a strum of a guitar, there's a lot of weight to it. It sounds fantastic. Moving down to the bass, look. It's a Dynaudio speaker. Dynaudio doesn't play games when it comes to bringing bass to the table. Every Dynaudio speaker I've ever reviewed has been an absolute bass monster, an absolute bass champion. And if I made a new list today for speakers that have the most powerful bass, every single Dynaudio speaker I've ever reviewed would be on that list. Their bass has a little bit more bloom to it. It's not super tight, right? It's got a little bit more bloom to it, a lot of body to it, more tone, texture. It's richer bass, kind of like the Spendor Classic 3.1 I reviewed a couple months ago. Now, for those of you that are like, hey, I don't like that. I want my bass to be tighter. Don't worry. Dynaudio ships this speaker with port plugs. So if you like bass that's a little tighter, or for some reason you need to get the speaker really far back against your main wall, you can plug those ports That does tighten up the bass quite a bit and reduce the amount of bass power it's bringing to the table. So that's what the speaker sounds like, and I'm here for it. I thoroughly enjoyed reviewing this speaker. I don't, guys, you guys might not know this is a little bit of a secret. I don't love everything I review. A lot of times I'll review something, I'll say it's fantastic because it is. The speaker is very capable, but it's not suited to my personal taste, right? So I don't love the process. I loved reviewing this speaker. It was a lot of fun. It sounded fantastic. I was able to kick back, relax, and listen to every song. I didn't have to skip a single track, and I was still getting a ton of airspace and resolution in those high frequencies. Very enjoyable, really easy to live with. Fantastic. Let's talk about amplification real quick. I was able to use my Kinky Studio preamp and mono blocks that lean a little bit on the analytical side without any issue. I was able to use the CHoco EMEI that leans a little bit warmer without any issue. The speaker's tonal character never really shifted a whole lot. Like, yeah, with the warmer CHoco, the Dynaudio EMIT 20s were a little bit warmer, but they were still mostly the way I described them. Using an analytical amp like my Kinky Studio, yeah, they were giving, a little bit more treble, sure, and stuff like that, but they were still mostly the way I described them. So don't think you're going to buy the speaker, pair it with an analytical amp, and make it sound totally different. It's going to sound mostly the way I described it, unless your room is bringing something wildly different to the table, right? This is a speaker, as I mentioned, you're going to want to have it, a few feet off the main wall if you can. And if you can't, do consider using those port plugs. Any speaker that has a ton of bass does need an amplifier with a little bit of power. Bass sucks up wattage quickly. I'd say an honest 50 watts RMS a channel or more should be enough for most people. Of course, if you've got more power, that's certainly no problem. And the speaker can play respectably loud if you need that also. Let's get into comparisons. I know that's what most of you guys like to hear about. I don't usually talk about discontinued products, but because I mentioned that Heco Salon Revolution 3 earlier, and that was a speaker I loved and recommended so much, I do think it's relevant because that was my most common recommendation in and around this price category. And this is now going to be my most common recommendation, I believe. So let's do it. The Heco Salon Revolution 3 was also on the forward side of neutral in the treble region, a little bit more forward than the Dynaudio EMIT 20, but its attack wasn't soft the way it is on the EMIT 20. So the EMIT 20 is actually the more refined sound, easier on the ears. Both give you a good amount of resolution, air, and space. Both image really well. The EMIT 20 images quite a bit wider in the treble and the mid-range. Speaking about mid-range, let's move down to that. Both speakers have good, full, confident, warm, full-bodied mid-ranges. They're both fantastic. They're both tonally similar in this area. The biggest difference is the Dynaudio EMIT 20 simply stages wider. Moving down to the bass, again, they're fairly similar in the bass region with good, powerful, confident bass that is all about tone, texture, and has a little bit of extra bloom to it. Can you see why I like the Dynaudio EMIT 20 so much? It's a lot like the Heco Salon Revolution 3 that I absolutely loved, just with slightly better treble overall, a little bit more refinement, and a larger sound stage. Yeah, of course I'm going to love it. Let's compare it to something that's actually in the market though. Let's talk about the SVS Ultra Evolution bookshelf. That's $1,200 for the pair. This is $1,050, so there's about a $150 price difference. That's another speaker I recommend quite a bit in this price category. Starting with the high frequencies, both are going to be on the forward side of neutral. The Dynaudio EMIT 20 is going to have a little bit more air, space, and separation, and a little bit of a softer attack. Both bring a good amount of resolution to the table. The EMIT 20 brings a little bit more. Moving down to the mid-range, both speakers have a nice mid-range that gives you a good amount of imaging, expansiveness, good sound stage and things like that. But tonally, they are a little bit different. The SVS Ultra Evolution bookshelf is going to be mostly neutral in that mid-range by direct comparison, where the EMIT 20 is going to be a lot warmer, a lot more full-bodied, thicker. Those guitar strums are going to come across with more realism and weight to them, where the SVS Ultra Evolution bookshelf speakers are going to be more about accuracy. Moving down to the bass region, both speakers have a good amount of bass. The SVS Ultra Evolution is no slouch in the bass department, but the EMIT 20 does bring significantly more bass power overall to the table. What else can we compare to in and around this price category? You know what? We should compare it to the EMIT 10 real quick, just because, look, they're a part of the same family, but that doesn't mean they sound the same always. Oftentimes speakers that are different sizes but in the same family sound very different, but this is one situation where they sound very similar. Both the EMIT 10 and the EMIT 20, a little bit on the forward side of neutral. Their treble regions are nearly identical. Fantastic airspace, resolution, a little bit soft with their attack, very refined. Some of the best tweeters I've heard in their respective price categories. Moving down to the mid-range, both really full-bodied, really similar, no real differences, except the larger EMIT 20 is going to stage a little bit bigger and be just a little bit more effortless and have just a little bit more space around everything. The bass is the biggest difference. Both have good, confident, powerful bass. The main difference is on the EMIT 10, the bass feels like it's a little bit more juiced up. The EMIT 20 actually has the more bass, right? But the EMIT 10 being smaller, you can tell it's like pumped up. You could tell it's like trying its best to show you the bass. Where by direct comparison, the EMIT 20 is just so much more effortless in the bass region. That is an advantage that just comes with the larger physical size. Now look, just to be clear, in a vacuum, the EMIT 10 bass does not sound forced or strained at all. But when you compare it to the larger 20, that's when you hear like, oh yeah, the 20 is more effortless, right? So I'll say this, just buy based on size. They're both fantastic. I like both of them a lot. They're really close in price, so I don't think that's going to be a big problem for most people. Get whichever one, fits the size you want, unless you're really, really picky about soundstage and you just want the biggest soundstage possible, that's going to go to the 20. What else can we compare it to? I don't review a lot of speakers in and around this price category because I don't love most of them, honestly. It's hard to find a really great speaker around this price. There's Thomas's transmission line Voyager. I don't know if he's still selling that though, and it's such a different sound. It's super warm and dark by direct comparison. I'll do it real quick. The Galleon transmission line in the treble region, dark, pulled back, one of the darkest speakers I've ever reviewed. It's just completely different than almost anything. Whereas again, the EMIT 20, forward side of neutral, a lot of resolution, a lot of air, a lot of space. Mid-range, both speakers have a lot of bass and a full confident mid-range, but the Galleon Voyager transmission line's mid-range it's a lot richer. It's all about tonal richness, right? The EMIT 20's bass is more like full-bodied and thicker. Even though both speakers have a ton of bass, the EMIT 20 has a larger woofer, so it's a little bit more effortless. Moving down to the bass region, the bass they deliver, while both bring a lot, it is very different. While the EMIT 20 has more like bloom to it and tonal richness, the Galleon Voyager transmission line has even more bloom. Its bass is very full, very confident, but it's going to have even more bloom to it. So if you like a tighter sound, the Voyager transmission line might not be for you, whereas the EMIT 20 might be because you can plug those ports. Actually, you can plug the ports on the transmission line TL also. So give me a second to think if there's anything else I can compare it to. Guys, a more professional reviewer would have these comparisons ready. I used to review stuff to the Focal, compare stuff to the Focal Cora around this price, but that got discontinued and replaced by the Theva, I think. And I haven't heard that yet, but Focal speakers, they're kind of like more just lean analytical overall. So it's just a totally different sound, and they don't have the bass power that Dynaudio brings. I think that takes care of the comparisons, guys. Sorry for the hard cut, guys. I'm bad at editing, but I did think of a couple more comparisons. Let's talk about the KEF LS50 Meta real quick. While that speaker is a little bit more expensive at about $1,600, it does go on sale fairly often, sometimes getting close to around $1,299, which isn't too far off the $1,059 of the EMIT 20. So the two speakers are pretty different overall. Both speakers are going to be on the forward side of neutral, but the KEF LS50 Meta is going to be a little bit more on the analytical side. It's not going to be warm at all, especially in that mid-range region. The mid-range of the LS50 Meta is going to be mostly neutral in terms of its tonal character. It's going to bring a lot of air and space to the table. The EMIT 20 is going to be a lot warmer, a lot thicker, a lot fuller, and the EMIT 20 is going to stage a lot taller and wider and deeper. The KEF LS50 Meta does stage really well. Its width is fantastic. Its depth is fantastic, but its height is a little limiting compared to the EMIT 20. Moving down to the bass region, the two speakers have a really big difference in terms of overall bass power. The KEF LS50 Meta is a fantastic speaker if you're a resolution first customer and you don't want any warmth brought to the presentation. However, it is much smaller than the EMIT 20. It simply cannot match the EMIT 20's bass power or extension whatsoever. One more comparison I thought about is the Bucart P300. That is, again, also a little bit more expensive at about $1,400 or so, I think. I haven't checked the exchange rate recently. Starting in the treble region, the two speakers are already different. The Bucart P300's treble quantity is mostly neutral. The Dynaudio EMIT 20 gives you a lot more air, a lot more space, a lot more expansiveness, a lot more separation overall. This is a pretty big difference. Moving down to the mid-range, both speakers are on the warmer side of things. Both speakers have a lot of that good full body thickness. But the real big difference here is the EMIT 20 gives you a lot more space around everything. Moving down to the bass, both speakers have a lot of bass power. Neither speaker is super tight with its bass, but the P300's bass is a little bit tighter and it has just a little bit more bass power overall. That's that comparison out of the way. All right, prepare yourself for one more rough edit as we jump back to the rest of my original review. If there's something I missed and you know I've heard it and you want to know about it, you can ask in the comments section. You guys know I'll answer those questions, or you can ask in my free Discord, links in the description box. So look, I think that's the review. I told you what the speaker sounds like. I did some comparisons. We talked about amplification pairing. We talked about room setup. I think that's everything I wanted to tell you about the EMIT 20. This is a fantastic speaker. If you're looking for a speaker around $1,000 and you like a lot of resolution, but you want it to still be really easy on the ears and you like a lot of bass too, you should give this thing an audition. If you guys got any questions, holler in the comments section. Until next time, take care.